proposed revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our reading and discussion of the book Codeword Barbelon. And today is Sunday, May 27th, 2018, and I am joined here with Jörg Glissman from Belgium. Hello, Jörg.
Hello, Brett. Nice to having me on again.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to today actually do what we planned, I think it was yesterday.
Right.
When we did this session and had a little explanation about the stuff. Why doesn't P.D. Stewart claim the papacy to be the Antichrist in all of his book?
Yeah.
And okay, that's another subject. And if you want to have information on that, then just go to the archives of Brett's channel or my YouTube channel, where the video is called "What Does Codeword Barbelon Have to Do with the Papacy Being the Antichrist?" Then you can have a look at that. That is what we did yesterday, where we actually planned, of course, the complete reading or the continuation of the reading of chapter 45, as you just said, Vicarious Filii Dei, 603 on page 447, where we left off yesterday and the time before. So I'm going to start in the under chapter and the sub-chapter that is called "What Does Vicarious Filii Dei Have to Do with 603 And there we read in the second half of page 447 that the author says, "As we saw above, in 1915 the Catholic Church admitted that Vicarious Filii Dei was inscribed in the Pope's mitre. And prior to that, in the November 15th, 1914 issue of Our Sunday Visitor, page 3, someone wrote in to the editor asking whether 603 had anything to do with the Pope's Latin title, which is Vicarious Filii Dei. The Inquirer quoted Revelation 13, verse 18, where it says, quote, 'Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. In other words, the Inquirer was suggesting that the Pope's title, Vicarious Filii Dei, added to 666. You will recall that Matthew Henry and Adam Clarke said, quote, 'It was a method of practice among the ancients to denote names by numbers,' unquote. We spoke about that in the previous reading of this when we started this chapter. And, quote, 'representing numbers by letters of the alphabet gave rise to a practice of representing names also by numbers,' unquote. The Hebrew, Chaldean, Latin, Greek, and Arab languages all have numerical value for some of the letters of their alphabets. Take, for instance, the original Roman letters I, V, XLCD. And you have to understand that the letter M was added later and thus was not a part of the original system. Now, how does P.D. Stewart make this point? The letter M was added later here. I think that is something I found in the book of Babylon Mystery Religion, if I'm not mistaken, by Ralph Woodrow, where that is in. I don't know if Tupper Saucy makes the point in Rulers of Evil, but they wrote two Ds close to each other. And when you write that in a very certain way, this two Ds, which when the D stands for 500, you can see it as an M. And this is a letter that was added later, that is not in the ancient time. This is not in the time of Jesus Christ, nor the time before, nor the time right after that. So this M was just lettered somewhere in the Middle Ages, okay? Therefore, you have the original Roman letters. I stands for 1, V stands for 5, X 10, L 50, C 100, because it comes from century. We have the centennial system here also, the well, yeah, I don't know, the decimal system. And D stands for 500. Now, when you add up 1 plus 5 plus 10 plus 50 plus 100 plus 500, you get 666. Many of the ancient names or appellations used for the sun god in the various pagan religions also added to 666. Roy A. Anderson writes, quote, amulets called Sigilla Solis, or the sun seal, S-U-N, sun seal, were worn by the pagan priests, and they contained all the numbers from 1 to 36. The veneration the ancients had for the sun god. In a figure in the Berlin Museum, there are 36 squares arranged with the numerals 1 to 36 in such a way that adding the numbers of any column either horizontally or vertically, and also the two diagonals crossing the square, the total is the same, 111. The sum of the 6 columns, computed either horizontally or vertically, is 6 times 111, or 666, unquote. Now, the point is, when you count 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 and so on until 36, the number you add up at the end is 666.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Did not know that.
Likewise, all the avatars, the author continues, or emanations or incarnations of the SUN sun god are called Buddhas and Rasis for the SUN, the sun, Siun, S-I-U-N. Now, the Greek word for Buddha is Xayuv, X-I-U-V, or Xayam, X-I-U-N, which stands for the wisdom of the sun, S-U-N, and adds also to 666, because the X stands for 600, the I for 10, the U for 6, and the V for 50, 666. Now, in ancient times, the cycle bird of fire or phoenix was worshipped as the bright and morning star. The old spelling of phoenix, P-H-O-E-N-I-X, which stands for the shining one, is phoenix, P-H-E-N-E-X, or F-E-N-E-X in Greek, phoenix. It is interesting to note that Lucifer is also called the son of the morning or shining one in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. And here the author had the mistake that we were talking about in that video I just mentioned yesterday, that here it is said the son of the morning, the S-U-N of the morning or shining one. No, no, no. In Isaiah it is written, how art thou fallen from heaven, Lucifer, son of the morning, S-O-N. And here in the book it is written S-U-N. So this is a very important mistake that we addressed in that video from yesterday. Maybe you can put the link to that video in the description box of this one, Brett. Then people can look that discussion up, because I'm not going into that anymore today, because that would just deprive us of going on in the book reading, which we already yesterday didn't do. So it is very important here at this moment, of course, to mention that Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 speaks of the S-O-N of the morning, the son of the morning, and not of the S-U-N, son of the morning, as it is written here in this book. Now the author continues and says, when we add the numerical value of phoenix in the way it is written in Greek, F-E-N-E-X, we get F for 6, E for 5, N for 50, E for 5 again, and X for 600, which adds up to 666. Now the New Testament was written in Greek. The ancient Greek name for the S-U-N, for the sun, was Titan. Add each Greek numerical values, and we get of Titan, of the Greek sun god. You get T for 300, E for 5, I for 10, T for 300 again, A for 1, and N for 50, which adds up to 666. Titan in Greek was in fact the Chaldean or Babylonian for Shaitan, the name by which Satan, also known as Lucifer, was called. And don't make the mistake that you take Satan for Lucifer. There's quite an important difference between Lucifer and Satan. Lucifer is the created, almost perfect angel in heaven that rebelled against God, and when he was cursed out of heaven, he became Satan. So they are one and the same, but they are not one and the same on the other hand. A little bit confusing.
Very good, Jörg.
Yeah, a little bit confusing maybe, but you have to get into that and study that a little bit to understand that. Satanists are not Luciferians, and Luciferians are not Satanists, but they venerate the same being at the same time. Okay? Now, the legendary Greek poet Homer says, quote, all the gods of Tartarus, or hell, were called Titans. And in the doctrine of the mysteries brought from Pergamos to Rome, the S-U-N, the sun, was said to be the only one true god Titan, or Satan. See Macrobius, and then follows here a quotation of numerals, and I don't know, it doesn't matter, of this work, Macrobius, where you can find that. However, the author continues to say Satan, or Titan, or Shaitan, is not a man. And Revelation 13 verse 18 says that 636 is the number of a man. So we must look to a man. Now this is the riddle. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, numerus hominis, and his number is 666, as we can read in Revelation chapter 13 verse 18. Here is the same verse in Greek, and since I can't read any Greek, it says that is 666. Now this is the most fascinating riddle in all of the Bible. The preceding verses 16 through 17 reveal, quote, no one may buy or sell except he who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. In Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17. In other words, the mark of the beast is found in the number of his name. The number of the beast, 666. So we know two things. First, that 666 is the number of a man. And two, we need wisdom to count that number. The need for wisdom indicates that the passage constitutes a kind of riddle or code requiring some kind of special knowledge to comprehend. This is a very fascinating riddle, a Holy Ghost riddle, and God wants us to solve it. The riddle applies to popery. Here is wisdom. It was a practice or custom in ancient times to add together the numbers indicated by the letters of a man's name, and the sum total thus produced was called the number of the man. I think it's quite logic, right?
Mhm.
When we go into what is coming right now, I think everybody will understand that perfectly. Now, if we turn to the Pope's personal title, or name in Latin, Vicarius Filii Dei, which is the representative of Jesus Christ of God on earth. That's what Vicarius Filii Dei means. In the Roman alphabet, we have the master key to the mystery of popery and Revelation, chapter 13, verse 18. Because vicarious, Vicarius, is, and the U is again a V at the end, it's vicarious, yeah, instead of vicarious. It's not a U, it's a V. So that's 1, that's 5, 1, 100. A and R have the value of 0 because there's no value added to them. I again is 1, V again is 5, and S is again 0. Filii, F is 0, 1, 50, 1, 1. And DI, D stands for 500, E stands for nothing, and I stands for 1 again. So you have 600, 6. In Fleming's Rise and Fall of Papal Rome, it is asserted that the title Vicarius Filii Dei was not assumed by the Roman pontiff, but was also once inscribed over the door of the Vatican. Not only is Latin the official language of the Roman Catholic Church, it is perhaps just a little curious too that it was in the year 606 that Pope Vitalian decreed that all public worship should be in Latin. It is even more mind-blowing that the names or titles that apply to the Pope's dominion add to 606 in 3 different languages, as shown in the text that we see below. We have here a calculation of the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Latin. His kingdom in Roman, written in Hebrew, and then added to the numbers, Rometh, yeah, in Hebrew, and the value of the letters there. I guess you will put a picture of that in the video. I can't explain this whole tablet here.
Yeah.
Then we have his race in Latin, mean Latinos, yeah. So he is Rometh, he comes from Rome. He's his race, he is a Latin, yeah. Again, Latin. Then in Greek is Atenos, and Atenos is, according to the letters, again, adds up to 606. And then, of course, Vicar, the Son of God, his name, Vicarius Filii Dei, as we already spoke about, also 666. So you take his kingdom, his Roman kingdom in Hebrew, and that adds up to 606. You take his name, his race, in Latin race, written in Greek, Latinos, and that adds up to 606. You take his name in Latin, and that adds up to Vicarius Filii Dei, that adds up to 606. So, his kingdom, his race, and his name. What defines a man? What defines a king? Well, the kingdom he's ruling over, the race that he is from, that he is ruling over, and the name that he is taking, right? 606, all 3 times. But that is not all. Not only does the official title and place of the Pope's dominion add to 606, but even his chosen descriptive name, Roman or Latinos, adds to 606, as we saw in the tablet above. Have you ever wondered why the Roman Catholic Church has chosen to be called the Roman Catholic Church, as opposed to, say, the Holy Catholic Church? Was Jesus a Roman? Were any of his disciples or apostles Roman? Was Peter, from whom the Pope claims to have his popedom, a Roman? So why is the Pope's church called Roman or Latinos? Reader, the answer is simple. The word Roman or Latinos is the key by which we solve the most well-known but least understood Bible riddle, Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. I think this is a misprint when he writes Revelation 3:18 here. It must be 13.
Yep. He says right in the next sentence. Yeah.
Revelation chapter 13, verse 18 uses the ancient custom for quote-unquote wisdom of counting the alphanumerical letters and names to finger the man and the system that will bear the mark of the beast, 606, the Pope's signature. I will now quote you several titles or names that apply to the Pope and his kingdom, the papacy, the Holy See, each of which adds to 606. You will see, dear listener, that at the end of this little chapter that we are reading here, there is no doubt that the Antichrist bears the number 606. The word Pope in Hebrew means a Roman and adds up in Hebrew to 606. In Greek, it means the Latin king and adds to 606. Equally, Latinus deceptor or Latin deceiver adds to 606. Latinus sacerdos, Latin priest, adds to 606. Latinus rex deceptor, or the royal Latin deceiver, adds to 606. Latinus rex deceptor papa, the royal Latin deceiver the Pope, also adds to 606. Yeah, probably because the letter the Pope, then after that, doesn't have any valuable numbers. It's all 0000, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't be possible to take Latinus rex deceptor adding up to 666 and Latinus rex deceptor papa adding up to 6662. That's because P and A have the numerical value of 0.
Got it.
So it stays the same. Yeah, you have to think a little bit, Brett. I know it's early in the morning, but I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know all these numerical values for letters at all.
No, but we just, when you turn to the page 449, it's or 447 on the bottom, it says IVXLCD. So these are all the numerical letter values. All the other letters don't have any value. So when you have this Latinus rex deceptor, yeah, and you take all the numbers, the letters with the value, L stands for 50, A 0, T 0, E 0, I 1, N 0.
Oh, I see. I get
U in this case is V, this the 50, the 5, and the S for 0. And you count all that together, you get 606. So when you have the Latinus rex deceptor, which means the royal Latin deceiver, and he says here that adds up to 666, how can Latinus rex deceptor papa also add up to 666? Because it has the same letters that already add up to 666, but here are 4 letters added, papa. Well, that can only be because the letters added don't have any numerical value. But they are a title, right? So when he bears the title Latinus rex deceptor papa, the royal Latin deceiver, the Pope, that also adds up to 666.
Yeah.
Latinus rex doctor papa, the royal Latin doctor, the Pope, makes 666. And finally, Latinus rex sacerdos papa, the royal Latin priest, the Pope, makes 606. There, as Tresham Gregg said to the Catholic priest Maguire, quote, "What do you make of that?" As they say, these truths are self-evident. Unquote. You can verify all of the above Latin names and their numerical values in any good Latin text. These facts nullify any possible answer or objection that the Pope's supporters and my Jesuit opponents could ever muster. I must conclude, P.D. Stewart continues to say, I must conclude this part of the analysis. My time is nearly exhausted. The following orthography is conclusive. All other Jesuit interpretations are spurious. I submit these facts for your careful intention. And then he gives us a tablet that Brett will probably show in this video, because we have to understand we are speaking of the letters Italian and Italian Church, and this is made up with Greek letters, and the Latin Kingdom, which is also made up of Greek letters. And Italian Church adds up to, I guess you know it, huh? 600, 6. Yes, and the Latin Kingdom also adds up to 600, 6 in the Greek numerical value that P.D. Stewart puts in here. And I think over these last almost 4 pages, he made quite a good point. Quite an interesting point, and quite a point that God already made in Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. You know, God is not the God of confusion. God does not leave us without any clues. When he says that the name adds up to 666, you just have to look, what's his name? How is it written in the language that person adheres to? The Pope, Latin language. Take the Latin numerals, and you have the Pope being identified as 603 and 6, all over. All over. But now, leaving this Kabbalistic numerical teaching, we come to the subject called Heated Denials by the Catholic Church. You will recall, the author says, that in the April 18, 1915 issue of our Sunday Visitor, the editor said, quote, "The letters inscribed on the Pope's mitre are these: Vicarius Filii Dei, which is Latin for vicar, or vicar of the Son of God." Unquote. However, quite surprisingly, some time later, almost 2 years after the April 18, 1915 admission that Vicarius Filii Dei was inscribed inside the Pope's mitre, the Roman Catholic Church sought to deny that this title applied to the Pope. That implied denial appeared in our Sunday Visitor on September 16, 1917. A facsimile of the original 1915 statement from our Sunday Visitor admitting Vicarius Filii Dei was inscribed in the mitre can be found in the appendix of this book, which is in the pages 527 through 529. So I'm just turning to those pages, and there we have the facsimile in the appendix. And on the back side, we have the following are the verbatim texts of letters written in January 1904 and February 1920 by the Secretary of Cardinal Gibbons of Baltimore in response to inquire about Vicarius Filii Dei being inscribed on the papal tiara and about the Sabbath. Cardinal's residence in 406 N. Charles St. N. Baltimore on January 26, 1904. Mr. H. J. Weaver, dear sir, in reply to yours of the 18th instigation, I beg to say that I cannot say with certainty that the words Vicarius Filii Dei are on the Pope's tiara, but the words are used by the cardinal who imposes the tiara at the coronation of a pope. Yours truly, W.M. Russell. And I don't think that you can even find that picture on the internet anymore of the Pope's tiara, where you have, of course, the picture here on page 453 in the book. That you can find that one where that is inscribed in Vicarius Filii Dei, but you can be sure that the Pope has many of these tiaras. And I know of a fact that I spoke on that years ago with Tom Fress, and Tom Fress, that picture is very hard to find, or maybe even taken out of the internet, that there was a Pope, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Pope Pius XII, who wore the tiara with the inscription of Vicarius Filii Dei. Okay? So all their denial just does not help. Now the author continues to say, I say it was an implied denial because it was made in response to the following questions put to the paper's editor, quote, what application has the number 603 to the Pope? And the editor replied, none whatever. It is the effervescence. Yeah, is that correctly pronounced? It is the
Effervescence.
Yeah, effervescence.
Yeah, that's how they say
it. It is the effervescence of vacuous minds. Such interpreters have never shown that the title Vicarius Filii Dei is really inscribed upon the Pope's tiara. This was a bizarre statement because, as we saw, the Catholic Church had already admitted in writing in 1915 that the title Vicarius Filii Dei was found inside of the Pope's mitre, which is another word for headband or turban, you know. It's the crown, the triple crown that he wears on his head. I just have to take a sip from my ginger here. Okay.
Yeah.
The first observation to be made about the denial of the September 1917 is that it has all the characteristics of a phantasmagoria. It is a diversionary tactic. For the editor's admission in the April 18, 1915 issue of our Sunday Visitor referred to the title Vicarius Filii Dei as being the Pope's mitre, whereas the later denial in 1917 only refers to the Pope's tiara. In other words, the statement in 1917 denied that Vicarius Filii Dei was on the Pope's tiara, but made no attempt to deny or retract the 1915 admission regarding the mitre. You know, the mitre is the fish head, the tiara is the crown. Yeah. Thus, even if we grant that Vicarius Filii Dei was never found inside of the Pope's tiara, as asserted by the Catholic Church, the 1917 denial is a non sequitur, as it has no bearing on whether or not the title Vicarius Filii Dei is or was once inscribed in the mitre, as was admitted in the April 18, 1915 issue of our Sunday Visitor. This is significant because the tiara and the mitre are completely different headpieces. As they say in the vernacular, they are like chalk and cheese. As you can see from the figures, these two pictures that are shown on the book on page 453, one showing the tiara of the Pope, and another one is a plaque of the Second Vatican Council from 1962 through 1965, showing the two popes, John the 23rd, who started it, and Paul VI, who ended it. As you can see from the figures that follow, the Pope's tiara is a triple jewel-studded crown, worn usually at coronation or other very special occasions, while the mitre, the more commonly worn headpiece, is a pointed hat, an erect cloth that looks like the open mouth of a fish. That's because it is what the Chaldeans wore, the Chaldean priests wore, who were all sun worshippers, of course, and worshipped the god Dagon. And therefore, that mitre is of Dagon. Now, it says here on page 453, between the two images, we can read, upon the papal coronation, the following titles are conferred. Accipe tiaram, tribus coronis ornatorum, et scias te esse patrem principum et regum rectorum orbis in terra vicarium salvatoris nostri Jesu Christi. Which means in English, thanks for the translation, receive thou the tiara adorned with 3 crowns, and know thyself to be father of princes and of kings ruler of the world upon earth, vicar of Jesus Christ. And then we have two more images, or three more images that we encounter on page 454. And the first picture shows the tiara and the head of Antichrist Pope Gregory XVI, born at Belluno in September 18, 1765, and named Moro Capellari. Elected Pope he was on February 2, 1831, crowned February 6th. Head of the Congregation of the Apostolic Visitation and of the Roman and Universal Inquisition. And then we have a mitre as worn by Antichrist Pope John Paul II, and we have the mitre of Pope Sylvester I. By the way, that's the guy that we thank our last day of the year name giving for, Sylvester. At least here in Germany. I don't know how you would say that in English, but yeah, the 31st of December is Sylvester here.
Huh. Did not know that.
And that's from the Pope, yeah. Yeah, you just call it New Year's Eve. Eh?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
No.
Weird.
So, continuing, what is the origin of the Pope's mitre and his tiara? Now we're getting really into it. If we search the records of the ancient Assyrian tablets, we find something quite amazing. I invite the reader to give attention to Dr. Inman's illustrated work, Ancient Pagan and Modern Christian Symbolism. On page 64, there is a readily recognizable picture of the headgear as worn today by the alleged successor of Saint Peter, being worn by gods of ancient Assyria, which is Barbelon. Says Dr. Inman, quote, as the Romanists adopted the mitre and the tiara from the cursed brood of Ham, so they adopted the Episcopalian crook or scepter from the ogres and of Etruria. Ogres are soothsayers, okay? This is a quote from Blavatsky. Markingly, the Pope seized the scepter of the pagan Babylonian pontiff. Yeah, and that leads us, of course, to Pontifex Maximus, another title. J.F. Welwood writes that archaeological finds show, quote, crowns in the shape of a fish head were worn by the chief priests of the Babylonian cult to honor the fish god, Dagon, as I just told you a few minutes ago. The crowns bore the words, Keeper of the Bridge. This comes from the Latin title Pontifex Maximus, which means Major Keeper of the Bridge or Builder of Bridges. The same title was later used by the Bishop of Rome. The Pope is also called the Pontiff, which comes from Pontifex. The next picture shows mitred Dagon or fish god engraved on a stone relief from a temple lever on the ancient Assyria, now housed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. The second syllable in the name Dagon, O-N, is Egyptian for sun, S-U-N. Today, the fish head-shaped mitre of the Babylonian sun god is worn by the Pope and bishops of the Catholic Church. Dagon worship was condemned in the Old Testament, as we can see, the author says, in 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 2. Let's turn to the Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 2. 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 2 in the King James Version reads, when the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. That's what it says. It doesn't say that it is condemned. It says here, and the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. So They have, of course, the house of Dagon, which is their temple of the Philistines, and there they have a statue of their fish god, Dagon, and they put the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark there, and set it next to the statue of Dagon in the temple of Dagon, of their sun god. And when they of Ashdod arose early in the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. Now, this is an interesting reading for some other time.
Yeah, it's going to go for a while, I think.
Just showing that there is only one God who really has power, and all the other idols are just figures of stone and don't have any power, can't do anything. But the author is not completely correct when he says here Dagon worship was condemned in the Old Testament, when he refers to 1 Samuel chapter 5 verse 2. In 5 verse 2 we only see that the Ark of the Covenant is placed next to the idol in the temple of the Philistines of their fish god Dagon. But when you read on in the whole chapter, you see that the veneration of Dagon is the veneration of just an idol. And therefore, of course, it is condemned by the Bible. It is condemned in the Old Testament because God says in Exodus chapter 20, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the bondage of Egypt, and there are no other gods before me. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's turn to the next page, and we see on page 456 again a picture of two obelisks. Top and bottom hieroglyphs on ancient Egyptian obelisks at the center of the Piazza de Popolo, that is the place for the people, that is Italian when you understand Italian, Piazza de Popolo, place of the people, facing St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City in Rome. The mitred figures left and right with supplicants kneeling in adoration. Yeah, so there are figures having a mitre kneeling down on this obelisk. Is Vicarius Filii Dei really a title of the Pope? As we saw in 1917, the Catholic Church sought to distance itself from the earlier admission made in 1915 that the title Vicarius Filii Dei was a title of the Pope. But that denial said nothing about the mitre. Now, even if we were to grant a moment of the truth of the Roman Catholic Church's denial, namely that the Pope's tiara and even his mitre does not contain the title Vicarius Filii Dei, we still have to overcome another difficulty, which is that this Latin title, Vicarius Filii Dei, has been used in the official literature of the Catholic Church, and that its English transliteration can be found in a book written by Antichrist Pope John Paul II. That the popes have used the title Vicarius Filii Dei officially for hundreds of years, we will now amply demonstrate. We find Vicarius Filii Dei in numerous quotations, and in particular from the false decretals in the so-called Donation of Constantine. Well, now it would be interesting to have Tom on the broadcast. He can tell a lot about the Donation of Constantine, of course. That gigantic forgery of papal authority, which forms so large a part of the basis of the Roman Catholic hierarchy, claimed to primacy. You know, just in short, the Donation of Constantine claims, the Roman Catholic Church claims with the Donation of Constantine that Emperor Constantine gave to the Pope all the rule over all the land, so that all the quote-unquote temporal power of the Pope is given by the Emperor Constantine at that time. But this is a forgery, and that was discovered somewhere in the years, I don't know, 1400? I don't remember exactly when it was discovered, but for that you can look up Tom's reading on First Amendment Radio in the archives of when he read the book, what's it called? Woman Rides the Beast from Dave Hunt. I know that because I have it somewhere buried on my second YouTube channel. A broadcast from Tom Fress where he is reading that and where he is speaking about the donation of Constantine for 3/4 of an hour. So,
oh wow!
If you want to have any more information, maybe Brett can put the link of that video into this here. And then people can avail themselves to that broadcast and listen for 3/4 of an hour on Tom Fress going on about the donation of Constantine out of the book of The Woman Rides the Beast by Dave Hunt. Yeah. Just remind me, Brett, when our broadcast here is done, that I will look that up. I will have a look at my second YouTube channel. I will provide you the link, and then you can put that in the description box of this video, so people can avail themselves for their own research, as we always say they appropriately should do. Yeah. So again, this sentence. We find vicarious filii dii in numerous quotations, and in particular from the false decretals in the so-called donation of Constantine. That gigantic forgery of papal authority, which forms so large a part of the basis of Roman Catholic hierarchy, claims supremacy. Now, the point with the donation of Constantine, of course, is that even though the Roman Catholic Church knows it is a forgery, and they admit it themselves that it is a forgery, they still build their power on it.
That's right.
We also find it used by Lucius Ferraris in his work Prompta Biblios Teca, 1858, in the Paris edition of his book, volume 5, column 1828, under Papa, which stands for Pope, Article 2, and on page 43 of the later 1890 edition, volume 6 of that same work by Lucius Ferraris, we read, quote, as the blessed Peter is seen to have been constituted a vicar of the Son of God, i.e., vicarius filii dii on earth, so too the pontiff should obtain from us and our empire the power of a supremacy greater than our earthly serenity. Unquote. And this is taken, as I read to you, from Lucius Ferraris' book. Prompta Bibliotheca is well honored, being highly commended in the 1913 Catholic Encyclopedia as, quote, a veritable encyclopedia of religious knowledge, will ever remain a precious mine of information, unquote. Now, this is from volume 6, page 49, under the article Ferraris. And if you want me to, Brett, I can look that up because I have that edition of the Catholic Encyclopedia in my closet here, just a few meters from here. And we could even look that up and give you the knowledge of that. But then the video would already come to an end. So I say maybe we do that next time. Okay? But we have the material even here to back this completely up and read that for ourselves. Volume 6 of the Catholic Encyclopedia in the volume of 1913. So, where did I leave off in the text here?
Yeah, just
Prompta Bibliotheca is well honored, being highly recommended in the 1913 Catholic Encyclopedia, and then follows the quote. Continuing, vicarius filii dii is found in the Corpus Juris Canonici and other official Catholic documents of the 1800s, so of the 19th century. Corpus Juris Canonici means the body of the judicial canon. Just for people who don't speak that well Latin. I mean, I don't speak that well Latin, but I make that up here. And the great Cardinal Manning also confirms the use of vicarius filii dii in his book, The Temporal Power of the Vicar of Jesus Christ, where he tells us that the popes have long used the title Vicar of the Son of God, from the Latin vicarius filii dii. And this is a quote from Henry Edward Manning, a Roman Catholic cardinal, it was, cardinal, of his book, The Temporal Power of the Vicar of Jesus Christ, published in 1862. Manning was made a cardinal in 1875, after publishing that book even. Now, even today, the author continues, the CIA's website, a U.S. government central intelligence agency,
Yeah.
the CIA is not a U.S. government central intelligence agency. It is a Roman Catholic government central intelligence agency.
Agreed. Oh.
So
What
the
this
CIA
country does by accepting these terms. You become the second beast of Revelation. That's what you become, America. Like it or not.
So even today, the CIA's website has a section of the Vatican which confirms this. Quote, the Pope is the Catholic bishop and patriarch of Rome and head of the Catholic Church. The office of the Pope is called the papacy. His ecclesiastical jurisdiction is called the Holy See, or Sancta Sedes. Early bishops of Rome were designated vicar, representative of Peter. For later popes, the more authoritative vicar of Christ was substituted. This designation was first used by the Roman Synod of AD 495 to refer to Pope Gelasius I, an originator of papal supremacy. Unquote. Yes, and I do not agree that this Pope Gelasius was a pope. After studying very well the books, for example, of Martin Luther, I came to the understanding that the very first pope was Boniface III in 606, and all the others, therefore, were just the bishops of Rome, who always claimed, of course, that they were the supreme bishops over all the other bishops. Yeah? He was always the bishop of bishops, but the very first pope was Pope Boniface III. Anyway, let's not go into a discussion of this, but let's see if we can finish this little chapter, because we only have 3 pages left. Let's see if we can do that, but I think that's a little bit too much for today. We're already 50 minutes something in there. So let's finish this subject, and then we'll have the rest for the next time. Yeah. How do you think about that, Brett?
That's just fine.
Sounds good?
Please.
An early compilation of the Roman Catholic canon law, the Decretum of Gratian, Gratian also being a pope and antichrist, originally published in 1148, confirms that this Latin title was indeed used by the popes. Speaking of Vicarius Filii Dei still, okay? It states, Beatus Petrus interes Vicarius Filii Dei videatur esse constitutus, which means, Blessed Peter is seen to have been constituted vicar of the Son of God on earth. Thus, it is beyond dispute that Vicarius Filii Dei has a long history of usage in the Roman Catholic Church to justify the claim that the Pope is the successor to Saint Peter. Only a stubborn person would refuse to concede this fact. So,
Yeah.
Brett, this would be interesting to see how many stubborn persons are watching this video and commenting on. We are just making this up.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good joke.
How much proof can you present to someone before he finally admits it? You know?
Yeah. Well,
the most important part of this reading of the book that we are just doing, in my humble opinion, is that we have a lot of quotes coming out of the Roman Catholic Church itself, whether by Cardinal Manning in his book, whether by the Roman Catholic Church's own encyclopedia, which we were reading,
right.
like the donation of Constantine, which you can read in the Catholic Encyclopedia on. Everything that we just read here about, and even don't forget this this magazine that we were talking about over and over again. This what's it called here? Our Sunday Visitor.
Yeah.
This Roman Catholic quote unquote newspaper or magazine or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We are taking here Roman Catholic publications where they state all these stuff themselves.
Yep, that's
So
right.
this is not a conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy facts.
Yeah, that's right. That's where it all comes from. Yeah.
Only a stubborn person would refuse to concede this fact. And I agree. The question is, how many stubborn persons are running around and listening to even this video?
Well, it all depends on what your motivations are for listening. Now, if your motivation is to prove us wrong, you're going to have a tough time because there's a mountain of information out here that goes straight to what P.D. Stewart is making his point here.
Yeah.
It is
That's
just
right.
a mountain of it. I mean, it literally is a bottomless pit. It never ends. Bless you.
Sorry.
God bless you.
Yeah, that's because of the sunlight that was
Oh,
getting
no
into.
doubt. I get those sneezes all the time when I'm working too. All that dust I breathe.
Yes, yeah.
Making those cuts and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's really what does it take to start someone on a journey in their own study? With me, it was just the revelation that a lot of these people that I knew in the church here, where I grew up, are involved with this, and that is a huge red flag for me because it goes way back to my childhood and growing up with some of these youths that have parents involved with this whole agenda, this learning against learning agenda.
Yep.
But what does it take for a stubborn person to be convinced of the truth? Well, you just start studying it yourself and find out for yourself and verify it, and then you'll know, right?
Yeah, that's why I always said only the truth that you find out for yourself is the only truth that you can ever accept.
That's right.
Not the truth that I speak to people, not the truth that you speak to people, but only the truth that they find out for yourself. Probably then we have to say the truth that God himself speaks. So yeah, when you're going on the search of the truth, then start there where the truth is to be found. The Bible, yeah, the Word of God. There is not one lying word in this holy book,
right?
In the Bible. Anyway, let's continue for the last two little paragraphs here. More recently, in 1941, the author continues to say that Professor Johannes Questen, who lived between 1900 and 1987, at the time the world's leading authority on Catholic Church history and author of the four-volume reference set on patrology, wrote, quote, "The title Vicarius Christi, as well as the title Vicarius Filii Dei, is very common as the title of the Pope." Unquote. Now, that statement he wrote by hand on the official letterhead of the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. The original was notarized by a lawyer, a copy of which appears in the appendix to this book on page 527. So, we have just been there on 527. And I read that to you from Mr. Weaver. Yeah? William F. Russell. Okay? Johannes Questen was no ignoramus. He was the leading Catholic patrologist and the author of the 4 volumes on patrologia. Dr. Questen, a Jesuit, was also the keeper of records for the papacy in the United States of America. The linking of 606 with the papal title of Vicarius Filii Dei first surfaced in the year 1612 AD in a book published in Wittenberg, Germany, by Professor Andreas Helwig, called The Roman Antichrist, Antichristus Romanus. In this work, Helwig took 15 titles in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, and computed their numerical values as accepted in those three languages, and all gave the number 666. But out of all the titles used, Helwig preferred Vicarius Filii Dei, as it was officially used by the popes in the Donation of Constantine, and for the reason that it met, quote, all the conditions which Jesuit Cardinal Bellarmine had thus far demanded, unquote. Latin, of course, is the official language of the papacy, and therefore it is not a stretch of the imagination to look for Roman letters in that title adding up the Pope's number. Yet, few today in this supposedly quote-unquote enlightened age are aware of this amazing fact of Bible prophecy. And that is because they just don't read the Bible anymore. Yeah. So, when you start there, reading your Bible, then, as Jesus Christ promised, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, will lead you into all truth. Just start there. Don't take the writings of man to find the truth out for yourself. Take the writings of the one who does not lie, who is incapable of lying. God.
That's right. Let God be true and every man a liar.
And every man a liar. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right.
Take the 1611 King James authorized version of the Bible and start reading there. And then go to the secular books like Codeword Barbelon, like Rulers of Evil, like Rome and Civil Liberty, like, I don't know, whatever you want to pick up, and then compare what is written in the Bible to those books. And when you see the confirmation of those secular books of what is written in the Bible, then you know that they are genuine, and then you know that their expressions and their statements are genuine and correct. And then you have found the truth. And Jesus said that that truth will set you free. Set you free from what? Well, set you free from the yoke of Rome. And then you can take over Jesus' yoke, because he said, my yoke is easy. Until next time, Maranatha.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things and aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.